Post is reporting Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered hundreds of the U.S. military's generals and admirals to gather at Marine Corps Base Quantico next week. The directive was sent to virtually all of the military's top commanders worldwide. Now, there are no details about what will be discussed at that meeting, which is expected to take place September 30th, the same day as the government shutdown deadline.
Aside from the fact that this is a very highly unusual meeting to bring this many generals together, all on relatively short notice.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the job security, that portion of it. I mean, the timing is very suspicious and unique. September 30th, also the deadline for the government shutdown. It doesn't seem like we can necessarily read too much into that, but is there any precedent for a gathering of this nature where there's so much unknown?
I hesitated to use unprecedented in the story, but in talking to more than a dozen sources, nobody we talked to had ever heard of anything like this in their 35-year careers. It really is rare.
Now, do you suspect that we, as in us, the media, is unclear about why this meeting is being called, but the generals have a better understanding, or do you think they're in the dark too?
The generals are in the dark too. I'm assuming Secretary Hegseth's team knows what the plan is, but I mean, when you've got 2- and 3- and 4-star generals and admirals who are making travel accommodations without clarity on what they're traveling for, that's certainly unusual.
The Pentagon has provided very little detail about this meeting, but CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata tells us it's a rare event, if not unprecedented move.
CBS News has learned that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has directed numerous generals and admirals, as well as some of their staff from around the world, to come to the Marine base at Quantico, Virginia next week. I can tell you that a meeting of that size on such short notice is extremely rare, if not unprecedented. So there are roughly 800 generals and admirals across the armed services. It's not clear how many have been summoned to come to this meeting or even why. But there are many that are currently stationed in active war zone regions in places like the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. There are also questions as to why the Secretary is having this in person rather than a secured video conference, as was usually done in the past. Aside from the obvious security risks of having all that top brass in one place at one time, it's going to cost a lot of money to fly them in from all over the world.
President Trump was asked about the meeting, but perhaps misunderstanding the question or unaware of the Hegseth meeting, he seemed to think it was foreign generals who were coming to meet Hegseth.
Well, I know. I love it. I mean, I think it's great. Let him be friendly. Let him be friendly with the generals and admirals from all over the world. Why? Is there something? No, but is there something wrong with it?
Vice President Vance stepping in.
It's not particularly unusual that generals who report to the Secretary of War and then to the President of the United States are coming to speak with the Secretary of War.
But there has not been a meeting quite like this one, and it has created apprehension among senior officers. Last May, Hegseth ordering at least a 20% reduction in the number of 4-star generals and admirals across the active duty force.
I think that's more than fair enough, Greg, considering that the Danish authorities have said they literally have no idea who might be behind what's happened there in Copenhagen. All they've said is that a capable actor must be responsible. But would your analysis also tally with what the Romanians and the Estonians and the Poles are saying? Because those were Russian drones, according to those countries, and Russian fighter jets. Donald Tusk, the Polish Prime Minister, says his country is closer to war than at any time since the end of World War II.
This is very good, and it comes into this selective use of information and perception. Because if we look at Estonia, was it Estonian airspace or was it international airspace alongside Estonia? And there is, I would say, I mean, Russia conducts these military flights along the Estonian border. I mean, it's got its psychological intentions, but it's not a violation of Estonian airspace. And I've also seen different reports which state this, that it was not Estonian airspace, but international airspace alongside the Estonian border. Now, coming to Poland, well, this is what Donald Tusk spoke of, but if you listen to the Polish president, he's saying something very different, and he's not alone. because the Russians were in direct contact with the Polish MOD, Ministry of Defense, and talked about this. They said, if you want the flight data, we've got it for you, but the range where those drones were is out of range of these type of drones. And there have been a number of sources, including this former SBU, this former Ukrainian intelligence officer, said this is a false flag, that these drones were Russian drones, decoy drones, but they've been capturing them because there's been so many drones going across Ukraine that a sufficient number have come down intact.
In any case, I cannot reject in any way that it could be Russia. We have seen drones over Poland that should not have been there. We have seen activity in Romania. We have seen violations of Estonian airspace. We have seen hacker attacks at European airports over the weekend, and now there have been drones in Denmark, and it seems that there have been drones in Oslo and in Norway as well, so therefore I cannot say anything else than that this is, in my eyes, a serious attack on Danish critical infrastructure.
According to the Danish police, the airport's airspace was closed after 2 to 3 unidentified drones were seen flying in the area. As a result, 50 flights were diverted to alternate airports. Danish police said that drones which shut the country's main airport appeared to have been flown by a capable operator seeking to demonstrate certain abilities, adding that no suspects had been identified.
Hours later, Norway reported a similar incident when a drone was spotted over Oslo Gardermoen Airport. The airport confirmed that flight operations were impacted due to the drone sighting.
Now, officials also said that Oslo Airport diverted flights late on Monday and shut its airspace due to a drone sighting. According to reports, 2 people were arrested for illegally flying drones in central Oslo. The drone sightings at airports in Copenhagen and Oslo come just days after a Europe-wide cyber attack disrupted flight operations at London's Heathrow, Berlin's Brandenburg, and the Brussels airport.
But there is this meeting they've called that's going to be sort of a source described as the Squid Games for generals. He's ordering hundreds of his top officers to come to a mysterious meeting on Tuesday in Virginia. No one, not even the generals, know what it's about. They're being summoned from all over the world. It's expected to take place at the military installation in Quantico.
You act like this is a bad thing. Isn't it nice that people are coming from all over the world to be with us?
It's not particularly unusual that generals who report to the Secretary of War and then to the President of the United States are coming to speak with the Secretary of War. It's actually not unusual at all, and I think it's odd that you guys have made it into such a big story.
As a former spokesperson for defense, if someone asks you, this seems like something, would you say not really a story?
I wouldn't. I'd probably also get laced for saying something like that to the press. Look, this meeting that Hegseth has called is incredibly unusual. He's summoning basically 800 general and flag officers, from all over the world, from their combatant commands to the services, to come into Quantico with their staff too. So you're looking at upwards of 1,000 people coming in for a meeting that no one knows what it's about. And
also, don't they have stuff to do? I hate to be a goose, but it feels like we're pulling them from actual work, security work.
The priority theater of the Indo-Pacific. We're pulling, Admiral Paparo, who is, even if this administration doesn't think that China is a threat, there are many people in Congress and in the United States that do feel that China is certainly our challenge. And so to pull not only the admiral who oversees that combatant command, but his deputy commander as well, along with other members of his staff, to come to the United States, that sends an incredible message to our allies that we do not have the person in charge there. But on the other hand, too, who is going to be in charge of these combatant commands all around the world that are facing tremendous challenges?
And then there's the conversation, I think we can say confidently, Hegseth is fundamentally reshaping the top brass of the military. It's something he's always wanted to do. Back in May, cut 20% of 4-star generals. He also fired the Navy's top officer, Admiral Franchetti, fired the Air Force's second-ranking officer, and fired the military's top lawyers, who, of course, enforce accountability, court-martials, engagement in war. I want to play for you guys something that Hegseth said when he was nominated to be Defense Secretary.
You have made statements to your platoon after being briefed by a JAG officer Well, by the way, would you explain what a JAG-off is?
It would be a JAG officer who puts his or her own priorities in front of the warfighters. Their promotions, their medals, in front of having the backs of those who are making the tough calls on the front lines.
Can we talk about sort of his position on this? Because obviously critics are like, you're getting rid of checks and balances.
Well, sure. I mean, I think that personnel is policy, as we all know in Washington, D.C., and Pete Hegseth wants to make sure that those generals are aligned. I don't have any insights into what the meeting what will happen on Tuesday.
What are the security risks of having such a large gathering of generals and pulling people from all corners of the globe?
Yeah, I mean, it's highly unusual, and one of the reasons it is unusual is that when you're pooling this much leadership, this much talent in one place, it at least raises the concern. What if something were to happen? There's also the secondary concern, which is just from a pragmatic point of view. The Pentagon has highly sensitive video teleconferencing ability. They hold meetings all the time virtually. They are constantly connecting on what they call VTCs. So that there's really no sense for why you would need everybody in person when they can conduct sensitive business regularly over video calls.